business relationships. So we have some incredible experts here. We're gonna get into all the tea. Can you guys give a brief introduction to who you are and just let the crowd know what you do?
Yeah, so my name's Heather Tucker. I am a sex coach, and shimmy.
That makes this one for you.
I love to help people to overcome any type of intimacy issues that comes up in their relationship so that they can have better, long-lasting friendships and relationships and abundance in the bedroom.
I like that term. Abundance in the bedroom. I'm here for it.
I expect the same applause. My name is Dr. O. That's what people call me, at least. My full name is Ife Okoronkwo. So I am a regenerative medicine specialist, which means that I focus on natural healing. Using your own body to optimize your healing, whether it is a physical ailment or beauty. So, think about that.
Hi, I'm Jessica Rivera. I am a business coach and consultant. I help CEOs grow and scale their businesses through teams. And I love to help CEOs make a belonging place, make people feel belonged at the workplace.
I don't think I need to necessarily.
Yeah, you're good. We know Calvin.
Calvin likes to have sex.
Hey. All right, so I actually want to kick it off with Heather. You have a really interesting career. I think a really cool path that you chose for yourself. It's extremely unique. Can you share like what inspired you to become a sex coach, and what does that really mean?
Yeah, so my husband did not want to have sex for 12 years. Yeah, very, 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 very long time. And sexlessness it's not really something that people want to talk about. It's a very embarrassing topic. And the upbringing that I have in the Christian community especially, sex is such a taboo topic. So if you have a problem, you could go to your pastor, but they won't want to talk to you. They're like, we don't deal with that. You should go over here. So, which my husband and I did. We went to a Christian therapist. Same, he did not want to talk about sex. I'm like, well, what are we supposed to do? Like, we have this problem. So it was very frustrating, very lonely. My husband would be right here, and I'd be right here. And I'm like, hey, you know. And he's like, no, yeah, literally. So
how long did you try to initiate? Like
12 years.
The whole time?
The whole time. So I'm very open. I'm very adventurous. I will do whatever. So it wasn't like he was asking me to do something I didn't want to do. It was me approaching and then him saying no. And then him not giving me an answer as to the why. He would just say, I don't know, I'm sorry. That's all he got. And I would ask him, you know, are you still attracted to me? Yes. It has nothing to do with you. I don't know. So it was very frustrating and very lonely because you're sitting right next to the person that says, I love you, I'm gonna commit to you, you're my best friend, you're everything. And to feel that kind of rejection from somebody that is saying, I love you, and showing I love you in other ways, but not wanting to be intimate, that is something that you do take personal, which I did. It was really, really hard.
So how did you get to the point from being so rejected and having that disconnect to now being a teacher and a coach and someone who helps couples keep the spark alive?
I love that question. Okay, so for me, what I had to come to terms with, and this might not be for every single person that sexlessness comes in, because I feel like sexlessness comes up for many different reasons. Sometimes it's the woman doesn't want to have sex after a baby, she has pain. Sometimes it's body image, she's not loving on herself, and so she says no because she's feeling insecure in that moment, and she doesn't want her husband to see her as this insecure woman because she's strong in business, she's making the money, but then she's having this insecurity show up in the personal aspect of their life. So I had to realize that while I was pointing fingers at my husband, it's your fault, I'm the one that wants sex, you don't. So I was outwardly saying it has to be his fault. But then what God showed me is, Heather, you have to take responsibility for some of the stuff that pushed him away. That was really hard, from wanting to have sex. So I had to get in tune with myself and ask myself, if he's not wanting to improve, what can I do in the meantime? One of the things that God showed me, which I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Bible, but there's a verse in Proverbs that talks about how it's better to live on the rooftop of a house than with a nagging wife. And I realized that that's what I was doing, because I was bringing up the conversation all the time. And every single time that I thought it was my responsibility to bring up the conversation to let him know, hey, I'm unhappy, I really want to improve this, I don't want to get divorced, I love you so much, and I see us as being these life partners. So I realized that the way that I was communicating was pushing him away, and so I had to learn a lot of different communication strategies on timing of when to bring it up, how often to bring it up, and when to let it go and let God do the work on him, and then just focus on myself.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of disconnects and tension, Calvin, you've been in a long-term marriage, and on the previous panel you talked about, you not being home all the time, and there might have been tension in the beginning of your relationship. How did that impact your intimate life with your wife? Or did it?
No, it definitely did. When you're not spending the time with someone, I mean, it's gonna affect your ability to be intimate with that person, right? I think it just comes down to communication, right? So I think at that time when we were having less sex, there had to be a realization that both of us were not having something that we wanted. We both knew we both enjoyed sex. We got, like you said, we got 4 kids, right? So obviously, we enjoy sex together, so what's the disconnect? And the disconnect wasn't really the sex. It was other things that we needed to work on. And sometimes we're good at it, sometimes we're not so good at it. But I think what we've learned is when we find ourselves there, we know we need to reset, right? Or at least the conversation needs to be had. And sometimes those hard conversations people really don't want to have, but they can make life just that much easier, right? And then there's just reality that comes around with certain things, right? Whatever it is, if we didn't talk about it, eventually, we both do like sex, so which meant one or both of us was gonna go find it someplace else. We wasn't gonna go but so long, just the 2 of us, right?
Did you ever say that, or did she ever say that to you?
No, I mean, there was a very blunt conversation about it, right? Why am I running around, doing all of this? And I think it's, I live a life where you could run around and it's easy for a man to go and say, I'm a provider, right? I go out and I do X, Y, and Z. And, you got a beautiful house, you got a beautiful car, your children are, wearing whatever it is, you have all those other things. And I think society at certain points says, as a man, you can rest on that. And but that's not really being a partner, and I think you gotta understand that. So, in doing all of those things, you realize that there's still someone home alone.
Jessica, you are a super successful, badass entrepreneur, gorgeous woman. I think, and I think a lot of us can relate in this room, it can be a little intimidating to men, right? When you are self-sufficient, right? You've kind of you've built your own thing. And you're divorced as well, right?
Well, I'm wondering, were you just in my text message? Because somebody literally just told me that.
What did they say?
A little intimidating.
Ooh, a guy said it?
Yeah.
What did he say?
And
Tell
I
us.
said, should we open my text?
Yes, look at receipts.
We can. Audrey has my phone right now, but I was literally gonna post it, but I didn't. And the conversation said, okay, so this person met me at an event, and will consistently like slide through my DMs, and then thought about hiring me, and then didn't, whatever. So, but we're friendly. And so one day, this just happened, I think it was yesterday or the day before, I forgot what he said, and he said, the thing is, you're intimidating. And this is an uber successful person. And I said, well, tell me what you mean by that. Like, what do you mean by that?
I know that you asked, by the way, for him to elaborate, because what does it mean?
It goes back to communication though, because they just said it, and I'm big on communication, and this is strategies that I teach within organizations is how to have those tough conversations, because we don't like to do that. But he said, well, number one, it was hard for me to believe that you were single, even though I said it a million times. If you follow me on Instagram, you know I'm single. I say it all of the time. He's like, number one, it's hard for me to realize that you were single, and number two, and this will be interesting for you to, let's see his
Oh, get into it. I want to hear it all.
He said, because of who you are, and I know the way that you are, I felt like I really had to come correct. So what does that mean?
Does that mean he doesn't with other people?
That's the same thing I was thinking. And he's like, no, it's not that I don't. And it was a lot of kind of back and forth. But I just thought that was really interesting that you just brought it up, because he literally said that to me. And I wondered, is that a real thing? Are men really intimidated by women?
Well,
or is that just something that women actually say?
We're going to get into that in gender
say
wars.
that a lot.
Yeah, no, we're going to talk about that with some of the guys in the house. But yeah, I mean, so how did you, like, are you not attracted to that anymore? Because I want to talk about like sexual attraction, right? I think a lot of women are attracted to confidence. I am.
No, I am.
Right.
Yeah, alpha man. I mean, I'm an alpha, right? So I need somebody who's going to match me or probably be more of an alpha than I am, right? I want to be fragile, for goodness sake. Like, can we get to that point where I can be fragile, please? I don't want to tell you what to do, how to do it, and when to do it.
I don't want to be a boss in the bedroom. That's their job. Here, yeah, sure, but yeah, I
No,
think
here is different, but when we go out, like, order for me, treat me like a little lady, a little fragile lady that I am. Like that, I don't want to do everything anymore.
do you communicate that? Because I want to make sure we're giving like some tips to the room, right? Yes,
Like,
go.
I really want to speak to that, because y'all sending mixed messages.
Tell me how.
No, because in this Me Too world, right? Like,
Oh, okay. I want to talk about that.
you can't turn around and tell a woman that she's beautiful anymore. Some woman can turn around and be like, how dare you?
No, I say thank
If
you
you
all of
turn
the
around
time.
and say, that was you put a smile on your face, it'd be a better thing. How you
Okay, not that
argue? Well, see?
But I do want to talk about this, Calvin.
Well, but
because-
it's complicated though, right? Now overcomplicated, and us men are simple creatures, right? So let me be an alpha male. Let me be an alpha male, right? Then don't be mad when I do alpha things.
You gotta earn it. You gotta earn it.
But what's an
Well,
alpha?
but see, but now you qualifying it, right? Like that's my point. No, like this is true though, right? Like,
The 3 men in the room. Okay, wait. I'll speak for myself, right? And I get it. It is complicated, and it can be complicated. But I do communicate that. Like, I want, when we go out, order for me. Like, when I want to be treated like a lady.
It's
I waited
communication.
for you to help me up the stairs, right? Open the door for me. I have 2 boys.
Jess, what if he does it wrong though? What if the person says, okay, I hear you, and then they go and put this into action, but you're like, I don't like the way that you did that.
Yeah.
I would have done it different. I think that sometimes men are like, oh, she didn't like the way that I did it, so then they pull back on wanting to do it again because, oh, she didn't like the way that I showed myself as the alpha man. You know what I mean?
I think women though also need to. I think we need. I feel like we're already in gender wars.
We're already in gender wars.
We gotta save some of this. Let's get back to the intimacy piece. Okay, I just do want. I want to continue to touch on this. Let's go to Dr. O. Actually, we're gonna move over to Dr. O. What do your clients typically come to you for when it comes to like problems in the bedroom, connection? I mean, I think a lot of us in this room, most of us are in our 30s, 40s, some of us are 50s. Is that a concern, and how do you address that?
So I'm not a gynecologist, so let me start by saying that. So people don't necessarily come to me specifically with that issue. However, I am the type of doctor who steps back and looks at the big picture. So, I'll give you an example. I have a patient, she's a woman in her late 30s, who came with me with a complaint of what we call dyspareunia, painful sex. And she had a history of fibroids, she had surgery, post-surgery, painful sex, dryness, low libido, blah, 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 blah. This is from 2017. I met her in 2022. Doctor, she was paying out of pocket. She tried Botox up in there, tried to relax the muscles, they said, all sorts of things. And she came to me because I told you I do regenerative medicine. Because the vaginal lining, you know, what happens is over time, the amount of estrogen, the hormones, testosterone, these all decrease. Well, we all know that, okay? But it can show up in different ways. And in some ways, it can mean that the vaginal lining starts to do what we call atrophy, get a little thinner, and so it's not as lubricated. And so when you're dry and there's sex, it kind of hurts, right? Also, the estrogen, the testosterone, which we have as well, men and women, is responsible for sex drive, right? They call that libido. You're wanting to have sex. As well as muscle tone, right? So one of the complaints that men have is, I work out so much, I'm not getting as big as I want to get, right? So these are hormonal complaints. Anyway, back to my patient. It turns out, now this is interesting, that after I started talking to her, I always do a physical exam. And I cannot tell you the number of times people say, I don't remember anyone doing a physical exam like this. I don't know. You're a doctor. Do they have you stand up, put on a gown, bend forward, bend backward, really examine your strength, your sensation? No, people tell me all the time. I've never been examined, which is sad. But it turns out it was her back. And the nerves in her lower back supply your pelvis. And guess what? There's something called referred pain. Like, you know when you have a heart attack and you feel it in your arm? That pain is referred. Well, guess what? Her back pain was being referred to her pelvis. Bravissima. I got on my needles. And now, you should see this girl. She was like,
Now she's all complicated.
Oh, yeah. Yes, that's right.
She's ready.
So, you know, and conversely, in men, you know, when you have pain, it affects your whole world. And this is what I want to talk about with regard to our entrepreneurship, both men and women. It is a stressful situation. I think we can all agree, yes? Guess what? The stress hormone is called cortisol, and we were just talking about this. Unfortunately, cortisol and estrogen work together. And guess what? Estrogen keeps cortisol in check. Maybe that's why when we're young, we're in stress and we're like, whatever, you're having sex every day, 50 times, whatever. But as we get older, that stress, our estrogen is lower, so it can't control our cortisol. So our cortisol does its thing. And what is its thing? Unfortunately, it lowers testosterone in men and women, decreased sex drive, lower muscle tone, poor sleep, feeling kind of not great. I won't say depression. I will say there's a term called dysthymia, which means I'm not getting pleasure in things that I should get pleasure from. Yeah? And now this is what we were talking about. You know, God is like, why did we do this? He's so clever and so annoying. Because guess what? When we get the stress, this cortisol, it is a primitive hormone. So we're being chased by a tiger, and to get that energy, the cortisol releases sugar in our blood, so we have energy. It increases our blood pressure, so we have energy. It decreases the function of other systems, like reproductive system. It ignores it, like, you don't need that. Like your stomach, you don't need that, right? Because you're running from that tiger. But guess what happens? When it goes on for too long, and we have so much cortisol right? Cortisol, it releases another hormone called insulin. We all know about insulin, which controls your blood sugar, right? But the insulin stops working because its job is to drive that sugar, that energy into your cells, your muscles, right? Your liver, which cleanses everything, and your fat, which stores it. But when it's in excess, it doesn't work. The insulin doesn't work, and we call that insulin resistance. You've heard of that, right? Which is on the way to diabetes. In other words, the sugar hangs out in the blood, the cortisol is high, and you're like, what do I do? So what happens? Unfortunately, your excess cortisol gets stored as fat. And the worst type of fat, what we call visceral fat, which is the fat around your organs. And where are your organs? In your stomach. Hello. How many people have noticed their stomach, they're still working out, it's just not the same as it was 10 years ago, right? Right? You have to work harder. And you're like, but I really don't eat a lot. But I really work out hard, right? So, I've given you a little scenario, and it's a little bit more complicated than this, but those are the basics, right? So, it's a hormonal issue, not your fault. It's a stress issue, something you can control. Isn't that wonderful? So let's do what we can, and let's acknowledge, okay, I am an entrepreneur. I have bills. I have a husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend. It's all stressful. So you have to look at yourself in the mirror and say, you know what, Ify? Today is gonna be a good day. You're stressed, you're gonna do the best you can. And at the end of the day, you said, well, tomorrow's another day, right? So you have to try to manage your stress.
Yeah, manage your stress, and I think you said something that I want to touch on with that I was talking to Heather about during the break, talking positively to yourself, right? Because like we can't talk about sex and intimacy without talking about body image, right? Is there anyone in this room that thinks they have a perfect body, that like loves to walk around naked? Okay, it's Victoria. But a lot of, I think, women and men, and I want to say this is a men too, as we get older, things change, right? Look different. Even if it's not weight, it's like lines on your face appear. Like your body starts to change. You can't deny that. And if you have the confidence to not be affected, that God bless, like it's amazing. But not all of us do. So Heather, I'm sure you've gone through this, your clients have gone through this. How do we start to feel more confident in the bedroom with a changing body?
Well, for one, the thing that we were talking about during lunch is that years ago I had a 100-pound loss, kept it off for like 12, 13 years. Then when I hit 48, 49, the weight, which we were just talking about, started coming back on the closer I get to menopause. And it's weird how like your body, and no matter like what you guys are saying, no matter what you're doing, it like will not come on. So it's really learning how to like love yourself at all phases of life and understand that every single one of us at some point is gonna go through it. And this is when you need girlfriend power. Like this is when you need people who can relate to what you're going through and be able to hug you more and all that. But with body confidence, especially in the bedroom, oh my God. This is like one of the biggest things that shows up for, I've gone through this myself. I work with people, they also go through it. And if you are not secure in your own form, it's going to project out. So even if you don't say a damn thing, your partner is sensing it. It's like your pores are releasing insecurity, and they can sense it, whether you're saying, oh, I hate my body in the mirror, or do I look fat? Like all those things that we say, they can sense it, and it is a freaking turnoff to guys. It is a big, right, Victoria? Yes, but it is. No, I'm just saying, like, it's a big turnoff. So the thing that we have to do is learn how to build our own selves up, love on our own selves. Do not look to your partner to build you up. If they do, it is icing on the cake. Yay, yay, that feels good. But don't put that on them, because that is a bigger responsibility. They're already carrying the weight of providing for the family, helping to pitch in with the trash, cooking, all these things that men love to do and step in. You know, God did not create our man to be our body confidence. He gave that to us.
So how do you do it?
So, like Victoria talked about earlier, mirror work is huge, huge. But I do want to encourage you ladies, when you go to do these affirmations, because I've seen this.
Wait, I'm sorry to cut you off. Can you say what mirror work is?
Yes.
No.
Okay, so for me, mirror work looks a little bit different because I like to put movement with it. Okay, so I go and stand in front of.
Saw the shimmy. So
Yeah. Okay, so
On your Instagram, she should.
Yeah. I love to dance with my heels. Okay, so I will stand naked, which not everyone is comfortable doing, which I highly recommend you get comfortable being naked and looking at yourself in the mirror. And do not avoid eye contact with yourself. Because when you, on purpose, look at your eyes, that is when you connect with your soul and your spirit. And that's when you start to believe it for yourself, because you're like, damn. Like sometimes I'll be in the front of the mirror and be like, oh girl, oh my God. You know, so that's the kind of stuff you have to do. And then like with the affirmations, if you're saying it out loud and then like 10, 15 minutes later, you're like, why don't I feel that? It's because underneath the affirmations, there's a belief system that you're carrying around that's what you really need to work on. So you will not believe the affirmation until you work on your inner belief, whatever area that is about yourself. And then when you're saying these affirmations and you're working on the belief and you're looking at your eyes, I love to turn on sexy music. Like, I was gonna ask the DJ to do this, but like if you turn on sexy music and you're like, I love myself, and you're just dancing and you start to feel yourself, that raises your confidence, and you literally can step into like this, you literally can step into this high empowerment that is just unfreaking unbelievable. Like you literally feel, like you feel it inside your feminine power, and you're like, oh, this is the highest version of myself. This is how God designed me to be. And then that pours out. Your partner sees that energy, feels that energy, that pulls him in. So he's wanting more sex with you.
Literally.
Yeah.
So question on that. Is it almost like channeling like another persona? Like,
Yes.
Like kind of like.
I am Beyonce. My persona is Beyonce.
Like, you know, she like has her Sasha.
I'm like, dun, 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 dun. Yeah, I'm like walking towards myself.
I love it.
Yeah, so you just have to figure out like, who do you want to channel? Like, who do you relate to? Because that's going to be different
So
for
okay,
everybody.
so like to relate this to business, it's almost like having your personal brand in the bedroom.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
I like that. Okay.
Exactly.
No
So
one steal that idea.
It's fire. It's fire.
Can I add one thing?
Yes, jump
You
in.
know, this has actually been clinically proven. You guys might have heard of guided imagery, right? So that's when you see in the Olympics, the guys that are about to go down the slalom skiing, and you see them with their eyes closed going like this, they're visualizing themselves, their best self. So guess what? They've actually proven research. In fact, Sloan Kettering Cancer Hospital, I did my internship there, they actually use it for patients who were diagnosed with, let's say, breast cancer. You got a lump in your breast, and they have to wait for a month for surgery. So they do guided imagery to help them, like, I'm gonna wrap a saran wrap around that tumor. It's gonna stay in place, not a cell is gonna move, right? And it actually has been clinically proven to work. So it's like what Rumi said, you know, that ancient philosopher from 500 AD, R-U-M-I, he said, you are the master of your universe. Your thoughts create your reality, right? So you have to say it out loud. Fake it till you make it, even if you don't feel good. Say, you know what? I feel good. I'm gonna feel good in 5 minutes. Even if you don't, you have to, because, and literally smiling, we know releases endorphins. All of this stuff, which feels like gobbledygook, has been clinically proven to work.
I love it. Yes.
Are you gonna tell us your affirmations?
No,
How's your mirror work going, Kevin?
my mirror work is strong. But I want to disagree on one point, right? Like, I do feel like in relationships and in long-term relationships that your partner is just as much a part of helping you with that self-image, right? Like, I mean, you're with someone every day, right? That immediate feedback is coming from that person. So I do feel like you as an individual should be a whole person and work on the things that make you who you need to be. But if your partner isn't making you feel sexy, right? Because we're gonna go through it, we're gonna be in different places, right? Like, you know, I'm gonna be a little crass right now, right? Every girl still wants that feeling of getting smacked on the ass by the guy who they want to smack them on the ass, not some random dude.
Very true.
So, like, you gotta do it, right? So in my life, like, believe it or not,
That's the takeaway.
You know, right? Like, in my life, like, Kim Kardashian plays way too big of a role in my household, right?
Your kids?
How so?
No, but the story I think would be interesting, right? Like, the very first time my wife and I, obviously when we were dating, our first trip, we went away. We ended up on the same flight with Kim and Kanye, right? Which was like interesting as all heck, right? Because she wasn't this big figure that we all know of now. She was kind of just Kanye's girlfriend at the time. But she was still in the media this amazingly beautiful figure, right? In person, I was like, cat. Like, straight up. Like, I was like, as she came through the airport, I was just like, that is not what we see on TV at all. And I literally sat there and, like, I have my own relationship with Kanye, and I literally can sit there and just be like, I'm fucking winning in life. My wife is better than Kim Kardashian. Everybody thinks, you know, whatever. So when my wife is going through some of her things, which I think is just normal in life, right? I go to Balenciaga, right? And not because it's Balenciaga per se, right? But because Balenciaga is a Kim Kardashian or whatever. So I'll go and find the picture that I know my wife is seeing. I'll go find those pants. I'll go find those shoes. I'll go find that top. I'll go find that bathing suit. And just be like, I'm winning all day, and it makes her feel so good about herself. So I think it's still incumbent upon your partner to play a role, right? Because they are the person who you're doing those things. And it makes it like my wife, when I put on a nice suit, right? It feels better when my wife says, oh, you look good today.
Yeah, I think that's good, but also you can compliment her and feel like you're providing that for her, but then it's up to her to believe that.
Yeah.
So that's the internal work that has to be done on both parties.
Yeah, but I think you help with that work, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
If you're consistent and if you at least know, like, what I've come with the women I've dealt with in my life, and I know, like, they only want that really that one person to make them feel like they're sitting on a pedestal all the time. And that one person could make you feel like you're way down beneath when they stop too.
I think the bottom line is when we're talking about relationships here, and everybody in our lives should be like that when you think about it. Like, for me, nobody in my life is here to point out what's negative about me, because I already do a good job about that in my head, right? So it's like, if like, you know, you have those friends or had those friends that would like give you these backhanded compliments, like, those people are not my people. Those are not my people. And so I curate the people that are around me, and I make sure that it's my job to tell you how dope you are all the time, and it's your job to remind me. Now, there could, you know, I want my friends to keep it real and give me constructive criticism, also coming from a place of love. But the people in my life fill my cup, and it's my job to fill theirs. That's just kind of how I see it across the board.
Yeah, and that's emotional intimacy, right? Which is, intimacy is not just in the bedroom. So how do you guys curate that in your relationships? Like, what does that look like, Jess? Like, do you ever have to, like, tell someone you need that from them, or is it natural?
Well, I think we give what we want to receive. Right, so I'm always going to tell you how amazing you are, and the people are naturally, they'll give it back to you, and you can feel when it's genuine and when it isn't. But like I said, my job is to remind you, like, to think bigger, to do more, to like think of big ideas. I'm here to support you in that, and the people around me do the same. And I think it's easier that way when you give exactly what you want. So you want more love, give more love. You want more appreciation, give more appreciation. Like, it can truly be that simple, because it's happened for me in my life. It wasn't always this way.
Yeah, I heard something in a conversation once, and it was a woman, and she was talking about like the rules, right? We all like rules in dating, especially in the beginning. It's like, should you text first? Should you do this? Should you like be more affectionate, make a move? And she's like, don't match their energy. Create the culture of the relationship you want. And I thought that was like one of the most brilliant things I've ever heard. Like you said, you want to be texted in the morning, text that person in the morning. And let them know it's okay, because I think people are so defensive when it comes to getting close to somebody new, especially. It's like, I don't want to get hurt, I don't want to give too much, I don't want to look stupid or look silly. But then you can't create real intimacy with someone.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You come into the situation guarded, and then they're going to feel that guard, right?
Yeah.
But it is also about reciprocity. So if I'm giving, well then again, you're probably not my person. So it's really about you understanding what you need and what you want and how much you truly want to give. Because when you're giving too much, that's exhausting.
Totally, it's got to be reciprocated, and you have to know when to walk away.
Yeah.
Right? There's your power, I think, in any kind of relationship, business partnership,
Exactly.
romantic. It's your power lies in your willingness to walk away.
That's right.
And I was going to add, I was in a 30-year relationship, married for 25, and now I'm divorced. And many people have my story, and sometimes the divorce is difficult, sometimes the injury that happened during the marriage is difficult. And so I think another thing to add is to know that everyone has their own story. And sometimes you have to meet people where they are. So I'm currently dating somebody. I've been divorced longer than he's been divorced. So he has not gone through necessarily the same journey yet. Also, it's a different journey perhaps for men than women. As we all know, when you get divorced, you lose half of everything. The children, if you have them, get involved. It's very complicated. So I think also to not sort of be too much of a victim, and meet people where they are and be okay with that. If you feel some love for them, they might have to go through stuff. It might not be about you when they act out in a way that you cannot receive well,
I love that you said that, because I found myself in a similar situation, dating somebody who was newly out of a divorce, and I've been out of mine for 3 years. And I was like, I had a lot of compassion that other friends couldn't understand. And it's not that he treated me badly, but like it was slower to progress. And I actually encouraged him to go to therapy, and he like loves it now, and he's going and he's healing, growing, but like you see potential in certain people. And I think a lot of like the rules we see out there around love and relationships, especially like on TikTok and social media, but I think very well-meaning people, but like there's no one way to do intimacy. There's no one way to have a relationship. I think it is so unique and specific to those two people that are in it. So you've got to trust yourself.
There isn't one way to do it, but there's always lean on communication, right? Because we are going to trigger each other. To your point, everybody's journey is different. And when we can say, like I remember I was with someone and I triggered something. I don't know what happened. But I waited till the next day and I said, hey, I want to understand what happened last night, because I obviously triggered something. So I want to make sure that I don't do that again. And so just opening up that conversation, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm such a grown-up now. I can have that conversation.
And you also probably made him feel safe to come to you when something, he gets triggered eventually.
Exactly, we all get triggered.
And sometimes your partner may not have good communication skills. And we want them to be like us, right? Why don't you talk to me? Talk to me, and they're like, So sometimes I think acceptance is also a part of this story. Many of us are married. Maybe we have children, and maybe we are going through this difficulty, and we're trying to push against a door that's actually pushes the other way, and we're not going to get anywhere. So sometimes you have to kind of change how you view things and accept people where they are and choose happiness.
Yes. And choose, like, your responsibility for your happiness is all within yourself, right?
I can't help but to like continuously hear folks just not entering into relationships as the full selves, right? Which I think is beyond important, doing the work yourself so that when you show up, right, you already know what you want, what you like, right? And then you could decide if this person can fit into all of that, right? Versus trying to figure out whether or not, well, I'm gonna be a little bit easier for him because he's just going through a divorce. Well, so what happens a year later when the divorce has been over, right? It's just gonna be a conversation with your girlfriend. It's like, well, I thought he was gonna be better, but he never grew into that. No, he told you who he was the day he showed up. You just didn't believe him.
Right. Well, that is true. You can't change somebody. I think we can all inspire each other, but if that person's not willing to grow,
Well, it's not necessarily about willing to grow. They could be comfortably where they are. And you just want them to be something else.
right?
That's true.
Right? Versus just saying, like, I looked at such and such, maybe he looked good, right? And whatever, but he might not be a good partner for me, right?
Yep.
And then the communication piece, like, I'm sorry, your boyfriend is not your girlfriend. So some of the
Can you
conversation.
expand on that? We have a few minutes left, but I want to hear more on this.
Because, like, some of the stuff that comes to men, right, we're looking at you like you're crazy.
Like, give me an
we just don't
example.
we just don't understand some of the emotional things that women are going through, right? Like, you need to have that conversation with your girlfriends. Make sure he understands, right? But the full-blown 3-hour conversation about, just like whatever it was, like, he's looking at you like, that just wasn't worth it to me.
Can you give an example so we know as women like what that looks like?
It could. Well, so like it could be, what I've learned in life, like women will almost obsess over what they're wearing or what they're doing, whatever.
The details.
The details of it all, right? And like you could turn the corner and your man could be like, wow, babe, you look great. Like and the next thing you know, your woman goes to change 5 times. You really don't understand why. And then she's like, well, you didn't say anything about it. These were brand new and you didn't do it. Call your girlfriend and let her know that.
Yeah.
Right? And if you got a really good girlfriend, she'll call him and be like, yo, make sure you say something about the pants.
Yeah.
That's true. I have all of my girlfriends, they give me their like partner's number. They're like, just tell them I need this. Tell them I want that. And I'm like, like the therapist for everybody. I'm like,
It
she's
works.
really stressed. Maybe you should get her a massage.
It works. It works. And you
It
know
does
what?
work. I think men need the
Well,
guidance.
Susie said to get a massage, so where the hell am I going to get this massage from?
Right.
We don't even necessarily think about it, right?
Right.
One of my wife's best friends, when it comes to birthdays, holidays, and all this other stuff, I get a shopping list. And I'm like, thank you, God. Because now I'm not going out buying something that you don't want. And then you turn that into, he doesn't listen to me, I've said 1,000 times, like, duh. And he just didn't even hear it or whatever it was, like it was a bag that he wasn't thinking about. But your homegirl, be like, girl, make sure he know. And most of you probably know when your homegirl does that for you, you end up successfully getting what it is that you want.
I think that lends to a bigger conversation, which we don't have time for today, but like assumptions. We just shouldn't really be making assumptions.
And bringing expectations.
Well, but let's talk, we don't have time. We need a part 2.
Well, that's what, we were saying, you accepting people and meeting them where they are.
Right.
Where they are.
Yeah, but I think the standards and expectations might be 2 different things, right?
Disappointment is typically mismanaged expectations.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to set the expectation for her not to come.
I feel like it should be an earlier conversation too, where when you're first meeting somebody, like this is just my personal thoughts from when I was dating. I have found it very helpful to mention some of these things within the first couple of dates because we are very emotional, right, ladies? So what happens if you don't mention it and then you're dating a couple months, 3 months, and now your feelings have been caught? It's very hard to separate yourself from that person, right? So if we had these conversations sooner, we wouldn't be wasting each other's time. Nobody would get their feelings hurt. It would be more of a business transaction feeling, like, okay.
Well, you're unattached in the beginning. You don't
Yeah,
care. I remember
exactly.
every guy I
Exactly.
ever dated, I didn't notice him in the room, and then he was asking me out, and then all of a sudden I'm like obsessed. 6 months later, I'm like, dummy, you should go back to that day when you didn't know who he was. All right, guys, we have to start to wrap this one up. Thank you so much. This was incredible. I feel like we dropped so many gems. Thank you for being here. Thank you, guys. All right. You guys can take your seats. We're ready